Although the Thompson versus Wonderboy fight is technically the main event, the reason I'm going to go over the Khabib versus Tony Ferguson fight is because, like I said, I feel like this is the people's main event. One of the most interesting things with fighting is when you have two guys going up against each other, you've never seen them compete before, you're not exactly sure how it's going to go. You could see it going either way. You see a guy like Khabib Nurmagomedov, who's dominated everybody he's fought, maybe outside of Gleison Tibau with his wrestling, and also his sambo, his ability to control people on the ground, versus Tony Ferguson, who's really got ways to finish you no matter where the fight goes, whether it's on the feet, whether it's in transition where he's catching a lot of people with his Darce choke, or whether it's on the ground. So a fight like this, there's a lot to go over. There's a lot to kind of review. I'll still go in depth on Wonderboy versus Woodley, but again, that's a fight that we just saw back in July. There's not going to be a whole lot of technical changes between now and then. It's more going to be strategy. It's more going to be how they go about their tactics. There might be some slight differences on that, but outside of that, we have a rough idea of how that's going to go. Obviously, there are going to be some things that are going to come up this time around where there are going to be some adjustments made, but again, that's a fight we've recently seen. It's not quite as interesting, and to be quite frank, the winner of that fight likely gets a fighter such as Damian Maia, possibly GSP if he gets pushed into the main event, if he gets pushed into a title fight. The winner of this fight gets Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor is the biggest star in MMA today, and really, when you've got that on top of the fact that this is a fresh matchup, this has to be looked at as the most interesting fight of the night. So, the way I'm going to go about this is a couple of things. I'll talk about the odds that the odds makers have, whether I agree with them or not. We'll kind of break down each fighter, where they're likely to win it, where they could possibly lose it, and I'll give you my prediction on what I think is going to happen. So I'll start off with Khabib. Khabib's a minus 190 favorite, so that would mean if you put $190 down and he wins, you win $100 back. This is a pretty high favorite against a guy like Tony Ferguson. Now, the thing with Khabib is his striking, it's not really used to knock people out, it's used to close range and to get people to put their hands up so he can get in and take you down. Now, he's fighting a guy in Tony Ferguson who's an excellent wrestler. He has a great background, Division II wrestling. He's fought some wrestlers before that have given him trouble. In particular, Danny Castillo was able to take him down a few times, but even when Castillo got him down, Ferguson was really elusive off the ground and really able to keep what Castillo could do to him at very, very limited, and Ferguson was able to attack quite a bit off his back. So for Khabib, if he's going to be effective, I would have to imagine that he's going to have to get Tony up against the cage. He definitely has some shots that he can take from the middle of the octagon. He's got a very good double leg. But where he's at his best is once he gets you clinched up, once he's able to switch between his wrestling-style takedowns and some of the more judo-style takedowns, where he can go from a double leg takedown, get stopped, then switch to a Seoinage, where other people might just go double leg to single leg, maybe even to look for a high crotch, although that's not as common in MMA. And the fact that what he does is so different, the fact that he doesn't go from wrestling takedown to wrestling takedown necessarily, but he'll go wrestling takedown to judo takedown, is what makes it so difficult to defend against, because you don't have many people you can train with who do that. So if Khabib can get in tight on Ferguson, if he can start chaining his wrestling together, get him down, be able to control him, because again, Ferguson has different ways to avoid takedowns. Not only does he know the standard wrestling defenses, but he's also really good with his rolls. He can roll out of takedowns. He did that against Josh Thompson, for example. But if Khabib can get him down, can control him, which he's excellent at, very good guard passes, very good at using wrist control to keep people from framing up and getting back up, this can be like any other Khabib fight you've ever seen, where he takes the guy down, beats him up for a while, and they either kind of give him an opening and he takes it, or he just pounds on him until the ref pulls him off, and that's the end of the fight. That's a very likely thing that could happen in this fight, and that's why Khabib is the minus 190 favorite. But again, Tony Ferguson's not going to be an easy guy to take down. He's not going to be an easy guy to control, and he has a lot of offense that he can offer. And if Khabib shoots in loosely, if he doesn't come in tight, there's a chance he gets caught in a choke. Tony has fantastic chokes. His Darce choke is very well known. He's also got a very good guillotine. It's going to be interesting to see how Khabib can handle that. Which brings it to Tony Ferguson. Ferguson is the plus 161 underdog, meaning if you put $100 down on Tony Ferguson, you'll get 161 back, which would total you to 261 total. This is one of those opportunities where in betting, one thing that I've seen in the past where I get myself in trouble is I bet on what I see as a possibility versus what I think is actually going to happen. With Tony, there are a lot of different possibilities for him to win this fight. He can win this fight on the feet. Khabib has shown in the past that he's not exactly the tightest striker. He's not the best defensive striker. It's more offensive to work into his grappling. in a way, that's kind of what ended up being an issue for Ronda Rousey. Now, that's not to say that Khabib and Ronda are even close in striking. Khabib's a much better striker than Ronda was. But as Ronda ended her reign, it was going against better strikers than her, and she wasn't able to close the distance. If Tony Ferguson can keep at a distance, use his length, which he has about a 6-inch reach advantage, and keep Khabib away from him, there's a very real chance that he can win this fight on the feet. Now, again, like I was mentioning with Khabib, if this fight does go to the ground, Khabib should have the advantage. You have to imagine that. But again, just because you're a better grappler than someone doesn't always mean you're going to beat them on the ground, especially in MMA. Now, one of the examples that people like to look at a lot is the Ben Henderson versus Anthony Pettis fight, where at the time, I believe Pettis was a blue belt at the time, and he caught Henderson, a black belt who had been competing in ADCC, with an armbar. And the thing about jiu-jitsu is there's so many aspects to it. A lot of it's positional control, a lot of it's submission. But when you're very successful in jiu-jitsu, a lot of times the guy who wins blue belt isn't a blue belt at everything. He's got a part of his game that's maybe purple or brown belt level, and the rest of his game is just kind of good enough to get by and survive, and he uses that purple/brown belt level skill set that he has to win against other blue belts. Tony Ferguson's Darce choke is easily at a black belt level. There are a lot of things that he does that are at a black belt level, and to be quite frank, that could end up giving Khabib a lot of problems. Khabib, all around position-wise, should be the better grappler. But if Tony catches you in one of his moves, he can finish you, and it doesn't matter if you're a better grappler or if he's a better grappler than you. And there's a real opportunity for Ferguson to take advantage of that. But if we're going to have to predict things, the easiest way that I go about predicting fights is if you were to tell me, Ben, the fight lasted 5 rounds, who do you think won the decision? That's generally going to be who wins the fight. If you're counting on someone to get a finish, unless they're just so explosive and they're finishing everyone, usually you're going to count on the guy who you would imagine would win the decision. In this case, I'd have to go with Khabib Nurmagomedov. I think Tony Ferguson has a lot of opportunities to win this fight. There's a very good chance that he outstrikes him, but the problem that Ferguson has that is also a benefit to him, but it can also be a problem, is he's so wild. He leaves a lot of openings. He's gotten caught a lot in the past. And if you leave a lot of openings, you leave the wrong openings to Khabib Nurmagomedov, he takes you down, you can get sapped really quick. And you can get just mentally broken very quick. So for Tony Ferguson, it's going to be a dangerous fight. It's a fight he can win, but I don't think he's going to. I'm giving this fight to Khabib Nurmagomedov, and I'm going to assume that he's going to win this fight by decision.